first of all, who am I? I always position myself as a developer because I still write code, I still participate in the projects which are delivering software. On the other hand, I do a lot of automation, I do a lot of organization, helping companies and teams to organize DevOps, to write automation code, to create pipelines and all that stuff. I'm also training, and that's actually the reason I am here now in Bucharest. I'm actually making a training for Orange today and tomorrow. I'm speaking, I'm organizing a couple of things back in my home country, and actually some people actually had trouble understanding from where I'm from, so I will just show it. Now, some people know where it is, but not everybody, so that's my country. That's Latvia. It's a small one. We have less than 2 million people in the whole country. And just to keep your perspective, Latvia is here and Romania is here. I was flying from Latvia to Romania yesterday. Okay. And back in my home country, I organized 2 things. One is LabCraft, which is Latvian software cross-nation community. Another one is DevChallenge, which is a conference that will happen this year for the 4th time. And we're kind of sold out, and we're happy about organizing such a big event because we're going to gather more than 700 people. And I mean, I really would like to invite you there, but I can't because there's no place basically there. But definitely take a look at the program. Definitely take a look at that conference next year because we're going to be even bigger. Another thing that I did with my friend, and I'm not sure if you heard about that, but it's called DevTube. Basically, it's an aggregation of developer videos, different technical topics, programming languages, Agile, a lot of stuff. And we did an aggregator of developer videos where you can find them and search for them in one single place. The domain is dev.tube. You know, it's available now. So, yeah, let's talk about my topic. Let's talk about this specific talk. Well, DevOps tools. How many of you actually are part of operations, part of development, and have you heard about DevOps tools? Most of you, right? So yeah, and the thing is that I put it into quotes because I don't think it's the right term. There's no such thing as DevOps tool. There are tools for automation, there are tools for scripting, there are tools for deployment, many different tools. Of course, people commonly call them DevOps tools, but they are quite, well, it's the wrong name, and I'll try to explain why. But at the same time, if you just go and Google for DevOps tools and go to the images tab, you will find this image, and also this image, and also this image, and this image, and actually you will find a gazillion different images describing different DevOps tools, different automation tools, different areas. I mean, it's really a lot of them. And the funny thing is people like to focus on the tooling. People, especially technical people like developers and SysAdmins, they like tools. They kind of focus their efforts on introducing a new tool, writing a new tool, and kind of using that. And well, as you can guess, the list goes on. The list never ends. There's a lot of things that kind of people try to select their DevOps tool chain, their way of doing deployment, their way of doing testing, their way of doing infrastructure. But what it appears to be, actually, even if you read what DevOps actually means, it's far away from actually being only about the tools. It's, of course, it's about the tools, but not fully. And for many people in software delivery kind of ecosystem, it is hard to get into that option of tool, because there are many tools and we have to select them and we have to somehow decide what's good and what's not good. We have kind of trying to jump on the next trend, trying to use Docker, then trying to use Kubernetes, then trying to use Puppet, or before that. I mean, it's a lot of tools that people are hearing about, and they think that the tool is the solution to the problem, and quite often it's not. But at the same time, without tools, we don't. I mean, it's by definition. DevOps is not about tools. DevOps is about many other things. But at the same time, if you think about it, the tooling that we have at the moment, tools that help us with infrastructure, help us with scripting, help us with automation of testing, deployment, monitoring, and all that stuff. Without that tooling, we would not ever be on the level we are at the moment. And if you look at the history of humankind, without this kind of tools, we would never build a house like this. Without these tools, we would not be able to build a theater or a library, and that would never allow us to jump to the next level of development and build more values on top of that. And of course, without tools, without weapons to protect our cultural values, we would never be able to build anything that we are able of building now. So tools, of course, they're important, and they're there to build and protect our culture. But at the same time, the culture is what it makes the difference for a company that is just buying the tool or selecting the tool, and the company actually delivering the product. So if you think about it, a lot of companies, a lot of teams, a lot of projects actually are just cargo culling. They've heard about a certain tool, they've heard about a certain strategy, they've heard about that DevOps helps, they've heard about that Agile helps, they've heard about that Lean is the way to go, and they're just blindly trying to adopt that. Have you heard about cargo culling? I guess you did. Or some of you, maybe not. Well, there was one guy who haven't heard about that, but it's fine. I'll try to explain what it is. Basically, some of the civilizations, some of the peoples that are currently living on planet Earth, they're not as developed as, let's say, European civilization or American civilization. And some of them are still living in the Stone Age. And at some point, during World War II, there were some islands in Oceania where people, those islands were used by Americans, by someone else, as a military base. And of course, for those some tribes that were living on those islands, and they saw the civilization they'd never seen before. They saw the planes, they saw the different technological things they never ever seen before, and probably will never see again. But the war was ended, and the military base was kind of left. The reason it's called cargo cull is because when the military was there, when the military units were there, periodically the cargo was dropping from the air. So the goods were delivered to that island to support the base, to support the military people, and of course part of that cargo was going to this islanders. And obviously after the war was ended, those guys were left without the cargo. Cargo was stopped to be delivered, but those guys wanted, of course, they liked the cargo. It was like the free stuff from the air, and they wanted to have that cargo to be delivered. And they tried to reproduce the technology that military people had from our civilization, and they basically built planes that looked like the planes they saw from this high up civilization. They also made this headphones for pilots made of coconut stuff. So they try to reproduce the things without realizing what's behind those things, and that's quite common, in IT world and software delivery world, when people are trying to reproduce certain way of doing things, or just trying to blindly use the tool because they've seen somebody's very successful with that. Somebody's delivering free stuff using the tool. And unfortunately, that's quite common in IT and software delivery and agile teams anywhere. And the ocean of tools we have now that is available at the moment doesn't really help, because probably many of you have heard about Kubernetes, maybe if you heard about Docker, maybe you've heard of different types of cloud providers. And at the same time, it's quite common that managers may decide, okay, we want to go to the cloud, or we want to use Kubernetes, without actually realizing why they need to do that. And quite often is that they're just not ready to jump onto the next level, because they still have a lot of legacy infrastructure, legacy ways of doing things, and they have to fix them first in order to go to the next level. Okay, let me give you another example from personal life. And of course, well, imagine every person wants to be healthy. Every person wants to, at least to some extent, to preserve a healthy lifestyle. Me, myself included, even though I'm a bit, fetish in that sense. I had a friend. Actually, it's a real story. I had a friend, and at some point he decided, he wasn't bigger than me. And he decided, I want to drop weight, and I want to, maybe I lost my power. Yeah, maybe I need to connect the power.
Under the seat.
Reach. my battery will survive a long time, but it didn't. So while my computer is starting up, I will continue the story. So basically, my friend decided to start running, and basically he bought like his new shoes, he bought like new sportswear, and after 5 minutes of his run, he broke his leg. Actually, he didn't fall. He was like just running normally, but because over the years he was like accumulating weight, his bones experienced a lot of pressure, a lot of additional stress that he didn't feel when he was just walking. But at the point he started running, the stress that his bone experienced like kind of doubled or tripled, and that's why the leg actually broke. The same thing kind of happens also to some of the big enterprise companies, which has a lot of big legacy. When they decide that okay, we want to go to a different type of infrastructure management or different type of project management, and they don't realize how much weight they actually accumulated all the years they existed, they start running and they fail. They fail with Agile, they fail with Lean, they fail with DevOps, they fail with infrastructure automation, they fail with Kubernetes, and the reason, of course, is because they're focusing on the wrong thing. Let me get back. No, it's still.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Let me see if I can get my slides back. And it's quite often that projects or companies, they try to focus on a single thing. They say that Agile is the way to go. We need to only do Agile and it will help us. At the same time, they have like huge legacy in their infrastructure, which doesn't allow them to move fast, as fast as they want. And quite often, and it's not related to only companies, it's actually related also to it's also related to to a human being. If you want to be healthy as a human being, just running is not enough, and maybe running is not for you. Maybe you should just do more walking first before you can actually run. Maybe you have to do more healthy eating. Maybe you have to Docker. Thank you. You see my computer is starting up. Let's see if we can get my slides back. Let's return to my friend. So he broke his leg, and basically he decided that running is not for him. So of course he felt a lot of regret because he was like a big guy, and he decided that running doesn't work. Running is not for me, and running is just for some other people. It's usually if you want to be healthy as a person, you have to combine things. You have to decide what's best for you, like walk instead of running. Better diet, more sleeping time, mixed activities, so don't just sit or don't just lie. Reduce stress, like peace of mind, maybe do some yoga, and find maybe someone who will lead you, who will guide you. And these kind of things, I mean, they're very important for a human being to be healthy. But at the same time, similar things are important for a company to be healthy. The company, and if you want to fix a huge organism, which usually like big enterprise is, you have to combine things. You can't just say that we're doing a job from now on and then we'd be happy. What? It's not mine. Yeah, it's Yammer. Thank you. So it's also the company should try to combine things and try to attack the healthiness problem on different fronts. And again, tools are helping us there. At the same time, we have to know because Agile or Lean or DevOps or infrastructure as code or Kubernetes is actually just one type of tool in a different area, but one type of tool. And we, as a company managers or company representatives, we have to not only use the tool, but we also have to have a culture of using the tool. We have to understand that combination of different techniques and different activities is not it's actually part of your culture. It's actually the way you're trying to address the problems and move on and become a more healthier organization. Okay, let me show you also some dialogues and some discussions I usually have with my clients, and I have that quite often with different clients who are coming and trying to help them with implementing. Usually it's different types of automation. At the same time, I'm trying to address not just the tooling problem, also trying to address any kind of organizational issues that these companies may have, planning issues, cultural issues, and all that stuff. But of course, I start as a tooling guy. I enter the company usually from a technical point of view. Well, imagine this is some simple dialogue. So I have a goal. I'm asking a person, how much time does it take to get a virtual machine? And altogether, I get an answer from the client, honest answer from the client, that usually, well, if you're lucky, it takes 6 weeks, and maybe then another couple of weeks to get all the firewall port openings. And I have nothing to say there. Of course, it's cool that you are so calm about the 6 week or 8 week waiting time. But at the same time, it's not okay. I can get servers in the cloud in 2 minutes, even faster. Why should anyone wait for 2 months to get it? That's part of the culture. That's part of It's in 2018. It's getting infrastructure is not a problem. If your company still has that problem, then something is wrong with the culture. Not with the amount of money, not with the amount of technology, not the amount of tooling. It's actually culture. Well, another example is that how much time does it take to create a new environment for you? It's another client, and I get an answer that it's just 2-3 days, and that may be like another week for doing the database migration. Again, getting a new environment in 2 weeks or almost 2 weeks is okay, but at the same time, I can create an environment for several of my clients in a matter of minutes, and I can create many of them in a matter of minutes. It doesn't matter how many you want, how many environments you want. I can create them in a matter of minutes. And if someone is saying that 2-3 days is not long, that's part of the wrong culture. People are expected, they're fine with waiting. And when they're waiting, of course they're wasting time. Of course they're doing something that is not efficient. Of course they're kind of losing focus. And that's part of the culture. Of course, a lot of these things can be solved with some technology and some tooling. But at the same time, if people are okay with waiting, that's also a problem. Another one. Well, I'm also doing Java trainings from time to time. I'm teaching courses on Java, and I get requests from my clients to do a Java 8, Java 9 training. And of course, I can do that. My first question would be what kind of level of experience your developers have, and I get an answer to that. It's not about developers; it's about SysAdmins. We want them to debug our code in production, and it's actually fine that SysAdmins know Java and know how to debug and change the application. It's actually a big good thing. But when I digged deeper with this kind of case, with this client, found out that actually developers work in that company from 5 to 9. But admins are staying there like 24/7 because they need to fix problems. And the application that they had to support didn't have any log aggregation, didn't have any monitoring, didn't have any feasible way of analyzing problems. So the decision that the company made is that let's teach the sysadmins Java so they can do it in production for us. But the actual problem that was in the company is that they don't have enough, they didn't invest enough time into monitoring, into actually making their application a maintainable piece of software. They relied on the poor sysadmins working 24/7 to actually monitor that, and that's why they ordered the course. Of course I did the course, but the reasoning was wrong. Another one. So I get a request to install Kubernetes and Docker for one of my clients. And of course I'm asking how big is their infrastructure, how big is their application, zoo, and I get a reply that okay, we have only one single monolithic PHP application, but we don't like our sysadmins. They're really deploying it very slowly to our infrastructure. So honestly, Kubernetes for a single monolithic application, overkill is a soft word for that. It's too much. if you as a team are not capable of deploying a single application in concert with your admins, then it's problem in your culture, it's problem in your team, it's problem in your communication. Tooling will not solve it. And unfortunately, I see that quite a lot. People are trying to replace the need to change in the company, or organizational change, with the change in the tooling side. And of course, a lot of people saying, we need Kubernetes, we have a lot of applications, and when you're trying to figure out how many applications they have, 1, 2, maybe 3. And they spend a lot of time configuring Kubernetes cluster and making it scalable and everything. And then what they get in the end is still the same problematic process of delivering the changes. So again, culture is a problem here, not the tooling. And quite often is that still, despite of all the efforts and despite of all what Agile community has done, despite of all what Lean community has done, despite of all the continuous delivery and DevOps communities have done, still we have a broken communication in the enterprise. A lot of things are happening in a broken feedback cycle. When you deliver a component or a package or software delivery to SysAdmins or to another side, and they somehow deploy it, and then it somehow works in there. And the feedback about how bad application actually is never coming back. So developers never get a message from the ones who actually managing the application in production about how bad is, how shitty is their application. Unfortunately, I mean, I've seen it all over the place. Also, another thing that I show quite often, and I still see it in many companies, is that developers more or less agree on the delivery method. They more or less do it in an agile way, do it in an iterative way, but at the same time, operations people can be, or sysadmins can be split even more. First of all, they quite common in big companies, in old companies, which have a lot of legacy, they pretend to be like a separate department, optimizing only for themselves, but also within their department, they also have isolated islands of suboptimal work that they do for different types of things. Like they could be a load balancing department, for example, or a networking department, or monitoring department, and they optimize for themselves. They don't optimize for the company value, and that's a big problem. And the question is, of course, is it lack of culture or is it lack of tooling? In my opinion, it's still lack of culture, and also the culture of tool usage is also missing. And in some cases, yeah, many of the problems can be solved with tooling, but still, if you miss the cultural block, it will not give you any benefit. Okay, now let me go through some of the things that have been done in this century in order to improve the situation with broken communication and broken delivery and actually cultural part. Because if you ask me, anything that was released or announced in this century, kind of like Agile, Lean, DevOps, continuous delivery, despite of different focus of that, each of those methodologies, they actually try to achieve the same thing. They try to improve delivery cycle, they try to improve the communication bit, they try to focus on people rather than focus on too much on technology, or replace the focus on technology with actual need to improve the culture. So in 2001, you probably know, Agile was born. Agile Manifesto was written in 2001, and you all know that. Individuals and interactions, working software, customer collaboration, responding to change. In 2003, you know this woman? You probably, yeah. Exactly. It's Mary Poppendale. So she wrote a book about Lean software development. And also she defined, Lean is not coming from software, it's coming from manufacturing, but she defined, together with some other guys, she defined these principles of Lean development. And the main of them is like kind of, you don't see that, is eliminate waste, amplify learning, and empower the team. So a lot of things that maybe are not clearly defined in Agile, they still are, I think, they kind of are isomorphic with Agile in a way. So we have this one. In 2008, you probably don't know this guy. Also, the picture is a bit unclear. It's Andrey Adamovich. He's the guy who was working as a developer and sysadmin. So he defined this term infrastructure as code, and we probably have heard that a lot. Infrastructure as code or infrastructure as code. He's the guy who came up with that term because and it was around 2008. We already started to have a lot of tooling that was supporting the way to describe our infrastructure with the help of the code. Do you know this guy? Maybe. Yeah, it's Patrick Dubois. And he is the guy who invented, together with actually Andrey Adamovich, they both came up and coined the term Agile infrastructure, which eventually turned into DevOps. So initially, the approach to manage infrastructure on demand in like elastic and programmatic way was called Agile infrastructure, because the guys in operations department really wanted to apply Agile principles to infrastructure as well. So, and initially the school was called Agile infrastructure, but then they came up with this term DevOps, which probably describes things a bit better. Again, if you look at of course, many people still think that DevOps is about tools, unfortunately, but if you look at the definition of Wikipedia and many other sources, DevOps, the first thing that DevOps defines is not the tooling. It actually defines alignment between devs and ops, alignment with the business objective, and the shortening of development cycles. So it sounds very close to what Agile actually wants, right? Just, at this point, just includes additional technical aspect, which is operations. In 2010, we have this guy, John Willis. He actually was leading a DevOps podcast for some years. And he came up with this term called CAMS, which means which is like it's an equal sign between DevOps and CAMS, because CAMS was an explanation for DevOps. So he defined DevOps as CAMS, and it's basically four words: culture, automation, measurement, and sharing. And as you see, culture is the first one, because it's important how you plan, how you organize things, how you find what is actually the business value, what is the right thing to build, and then you actually build it. And of course, without automation, without measuring and sharing all this kind of culture values and code that you do for automation, it's kind of impossible. So I think this is the best definition of what actually DevOps is. And as you probably know, DevOps actually didn't have a definition for a while, because the Patrick Dubois and Andrey Adamovich and some other guys in the community, they decided that they shouldn't define it. Because with Agile, there was a definition, there was a manifesto, and unfortunately, over the years, Agile turned into a church. People are praying for that, and they now saying that this is true Agile, this is not true Agile. And the guys who kind of led the DevOps transformations DevOps community, they decided to not give a definition and let the community with time define what is DevOps. And I think CAMS is probably the best definition I've heard so far. And unfortunately, there is actually DevOps certification available, but I don't think it's extremely popular at the moment, because by definition, by design, DevOps community didn't allow to have any certifications, any predefined, prescribed trainings or anything, because it was not about that. It was about moving the community forward, moving the business forward, moving the culture forward. So in 2011, we have this guy. You probably know him. Some developers here. Yeah. You don't know? No, it's Jess Humble. Jess Humble, together with Dave Farley, they released a book called Continuous Delivery. You probably heard about that. And if you look at the continuous delivery principles, so we built the quality in, something similar to what Agile defined and what Lean defined, work in small batches, something that is not obvious from Agile definition and Lean definition, but it kind of is implied from that. Computers perform repetitive tasks, people solve problems, so again, focus on the people, not on the tooling. Pursue conditions improvement, so improve all the time, and everyone is responsible. So sharing is impossible. It is important. So as you can see that, we have a lot of similarity between what continuous delivery wants to achieve, what Agile wants to achieve, what DevOps wants to achieve, what CAMS is about, and what Lean is about. And in 2013, also this guy, we heard about him, Jin Kim. His name is Jin Kim. He actually wrote a book called The Phoenix Project. He and another three guys. And he also, in that book, they defined so-called the 3 ways of DevOps, which, actually, those 3 ways, they don't talk about tooling at all. They talk about how the feedback should be organized, how the things should be working together. And the first way of DevOps is meaning that we're doing it like in system thinking. We think not about what developers are doing and what operations are doing. We think about the whole system, what we're delivering, why we're delivering the value for the system. Also, obviously, the feedback should be closed. So ops should actually provide feedback to developers, and they should have a say in how the operations is designed, how architecture of application is designed, how monitoring is designed, and they should influence that, and they should give it as fast as possible. Also, culture of continual experimentation and learning. That's something that's similar to Agile, and something that's similar to Lean, to continuous delivery. It's still the same kind of thing. We're trying to learn continuously, we try to get feedback continuously, we're trying to work together continuously, and not a single word about tooling. It's really about the culture, the way we organize things. And to me, this CD, continuous delivery, DevOps, Agile, and Lean, they are slightly different. They may differ in details, but they really isomorphic models in a way that they're trying to achieve the same thing. And yeah, this is a mathematical term, even though you can't really use it that well on the things that are not defined mathematically. But anyway, so and in 2017, there's a new word appeared. I really like this word because actually I was doing DevOps a long time before 2017. In 2017, a company called Weave Networks, WeaveNet, they wrote a blog post for it. They described the way they worked. Basically, any change related to infrastructure, to development, to documentation, to well, most of the things that they do is stored in Git, in the version control. And if anyone in the company wants to change something in that structure, he or she submits pull request. So it's really Git-centric kind of approach. And I was doing kind of similar things already for different lines where we were using Git as the main interface for communicating changes. And you may think that, what does it have to do anything with, with culture? Because, there's one tool name in the word, another one is kind of ops. And I would say that it's still the same kind of thing. Because it takes a lot of effort, or a lot of cultural changes or mindset changes in order for people to start using Git as a central tool for collaboration and communication. And at the moment, because we have a lot of tools like Bitbucket, GitLab, GitHub, and many others, which provide quite seamless experience for anyone who even doesn't want to use Git on command line, they still can use the UI of those tools in order to collaborate and communicate on those changes. Because you can create pull requests, you can command pull requests, you can create issues, you can merge things, and also because each repository that is involved into the management of your business has like a pipeline job, automatic job attached to that, which is responsible for delivering the change to production or to some other environments. The process of applying the change is always automatic. The process of discussing the change and giving the change is coming from in the form of the code, and you can always see who, when, and why did that. I mean, it's maybe a bit extreme approach to some companies, but I strongly believe that this is the way that we are going as an industry. A lot of things will happen through a sort of version control, and most likely will be Git, and a lot of things will happen through automated pipelines attached to events coming from Git, and those most likely will be some sort of pipelines or jobs, and it doesn't necessarily should be Jenkins, it should maybe some other thing. And well, you get auditing, you get communication, you get easy way to roll like that things, and it's not just the tooling here, because you have to be on that level to a cultural level in order to understand why this is important and why this actually works. So operations by pull request. And the version control is basically becoming a single source of truth about how your business operates. If the more code, the more automation is coming in the version control into Git preferably, then this is the main knowledge of how your business works. And anyone in your technical team and non-technical team can collaborate and contribute to that code base. But everything is code, because that's kind of capturing the knowledge about how business works. Everything is code. That's my main message. I know I'm a developer. I know it's kind of I'm a bit biased, but at the same time I strongly believe that it is the way. Tools are there for doing everything, like pipelines as code, documentation as code, tests as code, security as code, infrastructure as code, network as code, metrics as code, anything as code. There are tools for that. They help you out with that. But of course, it takes some cultural shift, some mindset shift, in order to start using that as a way to collaborate. And yes, IT is code, information system is code. And we're all contributors. We are all collaborators, and this is the tool that we should use. Okay, so but before I go, I have a lot of other things to tell you, and of course, in order to jump on that level where you can collaborate and decide on the tooling level that easily. You have to have people who actually are aware how IT works, aware how automation works, aware how things are glued together. And there's a term called T-shaped people. Have you heard about that? Maybe you did. Some of you. Yeah, but it's actually coming from psychology, I believe. And basically the idea is that you as a person, you have deep knowledge in some certain speciality, like you're a sysadmin or you're a designer or you're a front-end developer. But at the same time, you're not just focusing on your code, and you're not just focusing on, you're not just optimizing for your own department or your own profession. You actually are totally aware about what's happening in your company on horizontal level. So you know how the pipeline works. You know how things are glued together. You know which people are responsible for certain components in your organization. And this basically means that you have deep knowledge in something, and you have broad knowledge about how things work together. That was actually, this is funny to me. I like it a lot. So yeah, this is the classical model, like the T-shaped model. This is what the job ads ask us to be, what the managers expect us to be, and what we actually are. I mean, this is still the model, still like it, but I find it very funny. Okay. Another thing that is part of the culture, which is not related to the tooling, is how do we plan our work. And again, I'm returning to this guy called Jim Kim, and he came up with this few charts about unplanned work. And unfortunately, if you have the company which has a lot of firefighting, which has a lot of ways, a lot of things are done in the wrong way, in a manual way, then obviously you have a lot of time spent on fixing the failures, fixing the errors, fixing the unexpected things. And at some point you can become you will get a lot of unplanned work coming onto your table, and eventually the amount of unplanned work can become bigger than the amount of time that your company has. And that, of course, will mean that the company is either dying or it's investing too much time into the wrong thing. Of course, the idea is to reduce the number of things that are done in the wrong way, and of course, automation helps. Automation helps to reduce the amount of failed things, and you can focus more on delivering the changes. The same thing goes. Another thing that influences that planned work is the amount of unique configurations you may have in your infrastructure or your software delivery. It could be a number of operating systems. It could be a number of middleware versions you have to use. It could be a number of different programming languages you have to support. And of course, if you have too many things you have to be proficient of, your mastery level for each of these type of configurations will actually drop. So the idea is that you have to kind of talk, standardize, discuss, and agree only on the things that are only needed, to be as simple as possible but not simpler. And that, if you have the number of configurations you have to use is minimal, or just the minimal viable number of configurations, then of course you can increase mastery for each one of them, and then all of your operations developers, managers, they will be more happier because they will know what to expect. They will know what to work on. They will know what other kind of things you have to master, and you can build on top of that. Another woman, you probably don't know her. Her name is Dominika de Grandis, and recently, I think last year, she wrote a book that I really like, which called I don't remember the name of the book. What's called Working Effectively with Kanban or something like that. And she's talking basically about the book is kind of about Kanban, but at the same time, it's not about Kanban. It's about planning. It's really about planning and finding what is stealing your time. Why are you wasting time? So in a way, it's it's a lean approach for planning in general. And I really like this, different types of time thieves that you may actually every project encounters. And any team I've seen has this kind of issues. So, for example, you can have too much work in progress. You can have things that are seem like they contradict on the priority level. Things that are kind of unknown dependencies. And if you, when you plan something ahead, when you try to set up an iteration plan, your capacity planning, or do some strategic planning for the future, if you don't know what exactly is coming on, of course the amount of planning work will go up, and then you will not focus on delivering the right thing. Of course, the planning culture is also extremely important for a successful team. So it's just another tool, not a technical tool, but a planning tool that you have to use in order to get more time for your stuff. So, and the main rule of good Kanban delivery and in general good planning, that you shouldn't work on too many things at once. You have to reduce work in progress, and you probably have to say more no to incoming tasks. And that's something that many developers, many SysAdmins, and many managers are just not able to do enough. They take too much work, they take too much responsibility, they give too many promises, and eventually, of course, nobody's happy. Another thing, so how we should work together? Because in DevOps, the DevOps community came up with some of the patterns that allow you to organize the teams together. And there's a guy called Matthew Skelton. You probably don't know him, but he's quite known in the UK and some other countries. And he came up with some DevOps topologies how the team should be organized. And I will not go into details. You can actually go to devopstopologies.com and find 7 types and 990 times how things should be done, how things should not be done when you're trying to apply DevOps topology, the DevOps kind of mindset, and there are several. I will not go into details. At the same time, when we fix the planning, when we fix the organization of the team, when we fix the way we look at unplanned work, obviously we also have to decide what tools we should use, because tools are still important, and there's a huge amount of them. And you probably don't know this guy, maybe you know anyone. Neil Ford. He's currently working on ThoughtWorks, and he's not the inventor of the term, but he is the one who popularized the term very well. Technology radar. You probably heard about it. And basically the idea of technology radar that from time to time, maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, you as a company are trying to assess different technologies that are available to you, and technologies that probably are appearing on the market. And you put them on 4 rings: hold, assess, trial, and adopt. Hold means don't use, assess means that you try to use that, trial means try to use it actively, and adopt means use it immediately. And then you kind of try to put different tools that you may use or may not use into this different quadrants: techniques, tools, languages, frameworks, and platforms. And then you place them on this radar, and you update that radar periodically. Some people treat ThoughtWorks, because ThoughtWorks is releasing this radar twice a year, and they treat ThoughtWorks radar as a way to make decisions. But I would say that if you have if you're a big technology company, if you're a big enterprise, you have to make your own radar. You have to create your own radar, put your own technologies, the one that you work with, and adapt this radar to your needs, to your understanding of the world, and then make decisions based on that. So regarding the tools you want to use, regarding the frameworks and techniques you want to use, you have to assess them once a year or twice a year, and create a radar and publish it around the company to help other projects, other teams in your company to actually make decisions. Because this knowledge could be quite valuable for many people. And don't forget this phrase. So it was from a science fiction author in America. The future is here, just not evenly distributed. So some people will have to stay on all the technologies, not because they're bad, not because they're lagging, but because it's not the time they have to jump into new technology. And the last bit for me, I promise, is we have to understand, of course, as a company, as a team, as a project, we also have to understand where the industry is going, where the trends are going. And this guy became quite popular recently. You probably don't know him. His name is Simon Wardley. Maybe you've heard about Wardley maps. If you haven't, take a look at that. It's mind-blowing. I mean, it's also hard to understand, but when you understand it, it's crazy. So basically, what he offers a way to visualize the strategic movement of different components of your system and make your strategic planning based on that. So basically, a simple, classical map for the Wardley map looks like that. So it has two dimensions, and one of them is visibility, our value chain, basically, where on the top you have the user, who's using your product, your software, your company, and underneath you have like things that are less visible to the user, but probably more visible to you as a company. And this map actually shows that he plotted and the x-axis, it shows which stage of the adoption we are by using certain components of our system. And it starts with Genesis, when things are just starting to be born, then like custom build, product, and then commodity. And if you think about it, for example, electricity is obviously it's commodity. Nobody cares about electricity in software projects and in product delivery, because we know it's there. We can just plug it, and we can buy it from different providers using the electrical grid. And we don't usually projects do not have electrician as part of the team member, because you can always buy it. On the other hand, if you want some very specific, and maybe if you look back like 10 years ago, infrastructure or compute technology was actually somewhat custom built. So most of the companies, most of the people, most of the projects, they were either building their own data centers or they were configuring servers by themselves. Nowadays, with the interaction of a lot of cloud providers, infrastructure is becoming a commodity. You really can just buy it without caring too much about your operations department. And actually, this is sad news for DevOps, I would say, because DevOps was a lot, about moving forward with putting operations onto the agile and lean kind of way of doing things. But at the same time, the DevOps methodologies, DevOps the problem the community was trying to solve, I think it's already solved. On the cloud level provider, on the tooling provider. So it's in like maybe a few years, we will not talk that much about DevOps, because it will be by default, first of all, and second, we will get infrastructure and anything that related to monitoring operations as a service. We can just buy it, we can just switch the provider, we can just buy it as electricity, and this will happen. And we, as an industry, as different companies, we will focus more on delivering business value, on delivering code, on delivering applications, but not infrastructure. So this is sad news for DevOps, but at the same time, it's good news for the industry. We are going into more automation. We're building up on the culture of that. And if you're still managing servers in 2018, I would look further. Maybe I would try to at least try to assess the cloud providers and see what they provide. Okay, that's pretty much all from me. And basically, in order to be a successful, healthy organization, you have to make your directions and planning visible. So you can use radars, you can use maps, you can use Kanban boards. Use VCS repository like Git to describe your company business values and describe your business processes and automation. And this will give you like CD and GitOps. Pipelines, Jenkins and whatever. You use it for delivery. So again, CD and GitOps. But actually, tools do not matter, because tools they do matter, but they will be exchanged later on with different tools. And tools are changing quite often. We get new stuff. So, but still, the culture of using the tools, the culture of sharing the code, the culture of sharing the values, that's the thing that should stay. Tools will come and go. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you very much.